we're in the Mobile Fabric console right now, and we're inside the News and Weather app. So right where we left off last, we created a new application, and you can kind of see across the top the identity, integration, orchestration, sync, and messaging. So this is where you configure all these different services when you're building a back-end app. We're going to focus on integration right now because we want to connect to existing services offered by Google and Weather and the geocoding service. So right now we're going to create our first service. This is the news service. It's XML, and then we provide the URL endpoint. So in this case, we're just going to hit news.google.com, and we're going to put a parameter on the end to tell it to give us XML back. So this would be any XML service, REST-based, or even in this case, RSS. And you can see down there the web service authentication. If there is some basic authentication that you want to hard code in the middle, you can. We'll talk about some more robust security in the next section. So once you specify the URL that you're going to connect to, then you build operations off of your services. So we have a news service, but we're going to create two operations. One to get news for any category, so technology, world news, U.S. news. And we're going to make these operations public for now because we're not going to authenticate to the app. We just want to call these APIs with no security. We're going to come back and secure them later. So this particular operation uses the base URL, but we also specify something extra for this operation where we want to send in a topic to Google, and the $ category is a variable that we're going to accept from the client. So we add a parameter at the bottom called category, and for now we're going to put it in a test value of just W, which means world news. And then we can test that response back from Google. And we'll get back the XML from Google, and we can see what they're going to send back to us. But we don't want all of this sent back to the client. So we're actually going to go through, and we're going to define exactly what we want the client application to receive, and we're going to use XPath to parse out what we want. So we're going to start by defining a collection, because if you remember, the application has multiple articles that come back. So we're going to need to create a collection to hold all this data coming back because the XML repeats. So we can actually configure the middleware to say this response is going to have a repeating data. So I'm going to create a collection called news list, and the news list is going to contain a record, and this record is called a news item. So I can say this is going to be a record, and then I'm going to define what I want that record to contain. So now I go through and I pick out for each of the repeating news items what I actually want to send back to the client, because Google gives you a lot of information, but on our app, all we really want is a title, a link, and a description. So we're going to go through, and you can see we're specifying the title, and we're saying that's going to be part of the record. We're going to go down and look for the next item, which is the link, the hyperlink to read more, and then we put in what the XPath is for that particular item. And it knows that they're all linked together, so you don't have to repeat the same XPath over and over if you don't want to. It's all relative. Or if you do a slash, you can index the entire thing if you want to. So what you'll see is once we've defined our XPath and click test, it actually shows us our output result, which is our reduced payload. So we can actually see what our XPath is going to send back to the device. And if we went through that a little too quickly, you're in luck, because we're going to build one more real quickly. And we're going to do web services SOAP after this as well. So for local news, if you notice, there's get news for category operation, but now that we're going to build one for local news, and we're going to specify the parameter as Q for query equals $city. So city name is going to be the parameter that we send in from the device for this particular operation or API. So the point I'm trying to get across here is we create one integration service, and then you can build multiple operations off of that. And if you need to change the way you're calling the URL, per operation you can do that. So we specified city name as to provide a test value for New York, just so we can see what the backend is going to send back to us. And then in the response, the request output, we're going to go through and we're going to define the XPath again. You can see at the top there's a few buttons that say copy, paste, delete. You can actually go back to that original operation and copy all of those XPath and come and paste it in. In this case, we're actually going to go through and just type it all again. And I kind of sped it up because we don't have much time to get through all of this. But as you can see, they go through and they can specify, which means each operation can parse out different data from the back end if it wants to.